You're listening to A Tiny Homestead, the podcast comprised entirely of conversations with homesteaders, cottage food producers, and crafters. I'm your host, Mary Lewis. Today I'm talking with Ruth at Rud Ridge LLC in Wisconsin. Good morning, Ruth. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. Is the weather beautiful in Wisconsin today? Because it is gorgeous in Minnesota.
It's one of those Wisconsin days where you're not sure if 60 degrees is going to feel like 40 degrees or 60 degrees is going to feel like 80 degrees. So it's beautiful. I'll take it. But it's a little chilly out there for this time of year.
Yeah, May has turned out to be more like April, and April was more like May here. So I don't know. Mother Nature is just a fickle witch.
Absolutely.
WITCH. Let's put it that way this year.
As long as my husband can get the corn in the ground today and the other crops planted, I will be very happy.
Yes, because corn needs time so that it can be knee high by the 4th of July, as they say.
You've got it.
They just planted the field that surrounds our property.
Mhm.
Yesterday, day before yesterday, and they're doing soybeans this year, and it's been corn for 3 years in a row. I'm so thankful it's soybeans this year.
A little bit of change. Yeah, we actually had some ice on the duck ponds this morning, which was not normal for May. So just
No,
taking it as
our outside water supply, I don't know what they're called. It would in the old days it would have been the well where you had to pump the water out,
Mhm.
and it's not. You just lift the handle and
The
it
spit,
runs.
like the spigot. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's been frozen the last 3 mornings, and my husband's like,
Oh.
"I'm gonna have to fill up a 5-gallon pail of water and take it out to chickens." And I'm like, "Good luck with that, because that's
Mhm.
heavy."
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been weird, but I hear that this is the last cold week, supposedly, until fall.
We will see.
Yup.
One would.
Weather, man, I don't know. So, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you guys do at
Mhm.
Red Ridge LLC.
So Red Ridge originally started with rabbits. Excuse me, specifically Rex, not mini rabbits. We started with rabbits because we lived in town on half an acre.
Okay.
My children and I began with raising rabbits for meat and show, and we relocated to another property outside of town and have expanded into crop farming, and we will be adding beef hopefully later this year. So we are all around a family homestead. My husband is a seventh generation farmer here in Wisconsin, so we are looking to continue that with the eighth generation that would be our children.
Nice. I have a question about the Rex rabbit. Rex
Sure.
rabbits are the ones that look like velvet, right?
Yes, they are. They are kind of generally considered a commercial breed, larger in scale. They have a versatility where their pelts are utilized in a lot of garment making and such. They're very, very soft. Once you feel Rex rabbit fur, nothing else feels quite like it in density and softness. And they really are a joy to raise and watch thrive in our homestead.
A friend of mine had one, and it was like a light chocolate brown one, but she had black eyeliner around her eyes,
Hmm.
and I fell in love with that rabbit. She was friendly, and she was the softest animal I have ever petted in my whole life.
Yes, absolutely. And we specifically have always focused on temperament of our stock. They are handled quite a bit from the day they are born. We do routine nest box checks. We're always hands-on, making sure that they're growing well, everybody's alive in the nest, that they are used to being handled, that moms are used to us handling them. So it kind of really sets them up for a thriving of their social personality in that aspect that, you pointed out, they can be really sweet and kind.
Yes, I mean, I think that rabbits make excellent pets as long as they are socialized to being handled.
Yes. Well, and certainly historically in America, rabbits have been utilized for meat. It's not quite as common as it once was in either the country or our region specifically to have rabbits as meat. But I think it's an important point for people or families who want to be a little more self-sustainable to be able to be involved in their own personal food chain, whether it be for themselves or for their pets. We do supply some people rabbit meat for their pets,
Mhm.
dogs and cats, sometimes snakes. I think that people can care for their livestock, and rabbits can be a part of livestock while also being, kind of that cute and cuddly at the same time. It's an interesting dynamic to try to explain to people that are looking to begin on a homesteading journey.
Yes, you don't just have to have meat chickens, you can have meat rabbits as well.
Yes. Rabbit meat actually is considered one of the healthiest and easily digestible proteins that's available to people to consume. I know that, again, people have to kind of get past the fact that it's their own animal they would be harvesting and it's not, presented in a package, right? These days, every single animal that we consume kind of looks the same on a grocery store shelf. They're all basically in the same size packages, they're in the same sort of presentation. But rabbit meat, from a health standpoint, personally, can really give people a solid boost into their nutrition.
Yes, and I keep hearing that if all you ate was rabbit for your meat source, that doesn't go well because they don't have a lot of fat on them.
So that is more geared to wild game rabbit.
Okay.
Um, while within the meat itself, there's not like a lot of marbling like you would see in beef or in pork. You will find when you harvest domestic rabbits that they do have a certain amount of fat content within them.
Okay.
That being said, there's no one ever that's really consuming solely rabbit in their diet, in this day and age, if
Yeah.
you understand where I'm coming, So it would be really, really difficult to be so exclusively reliant upon rabbit meat that you would find yourself deficient, in nutrients.
Okay. So it's I wanted to bring it up because people keep telling me this and I'm like, I don't think anybody's just going to eat rabbit. Number 1. And number 2, we had rabbits for a while and when we butchered them, they had fat on them.
Right. It's very much akin to the old wives' tale that if you touch a rabbit or touch a nest from a rabbit, that the mom will abandon that nest. It's kind of the same, in the same vein, that there may have been a grain of truth into, exclusively utilizing rabbit being poor for your health. You obviously need a well-rounded diet.
Mhm.
That somehow that translated into people believing that rabbit starvation is an issue when you're utilizing rabbit meat, and that it's just not the case.
Thank you. I was hoping you would clear that up for me.
Absolutely.
And you know far more about rabbits than I do. We did it. We did not do well at it, and we don't raise rabbits anymore.
I'm sorry to hear that because we really do find them to be a positive impact in our life.
We had dumb bunnies. They did not know how to procreate. And we had the right genders or sexes or whatever. They just didn't make babies.
I believe people have found that there is the saying of, breeding like rabbits,
Mhm.
that particularly when you want them to, they may not. It can be a little bit of an art and a science. Um, There are things such as the rabbits' overconsumption of a pelleted feed that can lead them to be a little heavier in fat that would limit their ability to get pregnant. There can be other environmental stressors or factors that can make it a little more difficult than it may seem on the surface to kind of really get an established rabbitry, even of a trio, into a productive meat source for a family. But if you can work through trial and error and really talk to people that have an established formula, you know, sometimes it can really work out.
Yeah, and I wish it had, but we were just after a year, we were so frustrated with these rabbits.
I
And
don't blame you.
and feeding livestock that isn't doing the job. is not a good plan. So we just were
Yes.
like, nah, we're just going to butcher the ones we have and stick them in the freezer. Now, having said that, one of the females did get pregnant and she did have
Mhm.
babies. And it was one of the most wonderful couple of months of my life because baby rabbits are freaking adorable.
They really are. I always have to tell people when I show them pictures of new litters, like the day they're born, I promise they get cuter. Um, it can be a little surprising for people when they see what a newborn rabbit looks like, but
Naked mole rat.
yeah, we call them hippos,
Yep.
little, blind hippos. But, as they grow, and it really can be a joy. My personal favorite age is 3 weeks old, which we have some rabbits in the barn right now that are getting ready to be that age.
Mhm.
But for the most part, it can be really a joyous process.
They are so sweet. And the reason that I say it was one of the happiest couple of months of my life is because it was really hot when this mama had them. It was June.
Mhm,
It was way hotter than it should have been.
mhm.
And there was no way to keep the hutch cool. And
Oh,
so I demanded that we bring the mama and the babies in. So
uh-huh.
the mama and the babies hung out in a big old plastic bin with the nest box and hay, clean that thing out every day.
Yep.
And I got to watch these babies grow from a day old until they went back outside with mom at about 5 or 6 weeks old. 6 weeks old.
And it's amazing how quickly they grow, huh? You just kind of,
Yes.
it's hard to even believe sometimes, yeah.
Yes. And because they were the bin was on my kitchen table, I got to pick up baby bunnies whenever I wanted to, and they were very socialized.
Yes, absolutely.
It was really fun. I don't want to do it again anytime soon, but it was really, really fun while it lasted.
You're grateful for the experience,
Oh,
absolutely.
I am. I would not change it for anything. And I told my mom, I live in Minnesota and she lives in Maine, and I told her the whole story when we did it. And she was like, "So you get up every morning and get your coffee, drink about half a cup of coffee, and then just sit down and commune with baby rabbits?" And I was like, "Yes, I do."
Yes, and it's fantastic, absolutely. It really can be a joy.
She said, "I think I'm jealous." I said, "Get you some rabbits, mom." She's like, "Nah, I'm too old. I'm not doing that." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." So it was very fun. I don't want to do it again. But I commend anyone who is raising rabbits because it is an art and a science, I think.
It is, I agree, yes.
So you said you're thinking about getting cows. So
Yes,
so
go
is
ahead.
that's for meat or dairy or both?
Meat. So my husband was raised on a dairy farm. He comes from a long line of dairy farmers. Unfortunately, in 2008, his family's dairy barn burned to the ground.
Oh,
Luckily, all the animals and all the people were safe. Um, but since that time, his family has pivoted to raising beef cows. They raise Hereford for the most part. And so we are looking to add our own beef cows down here. We're about 20 miles away from my in-laws' farm. We're looking to add beef cows to our pasture.
so you don't have to tell me an exact number, but are we talking like 10 or are we talking like 100?
So we're on the smaller side of
Mhm.
of an operation, probably 25 or so.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask a really stupid question because I literally don't know the answer to this. Where does one acquire beef cattle in Wisconsin?
Well, so acquiring them directly from other farmers is an option. The auctions, equity livestock would be another option. Certainly, the last handful of years, 3 years or so, beef prices have soared quite a bit.
Yes.
We joke that it has not been a wonderful time to plan to get into beef cattle. Um, so short of purchasing from our own family, um, or going to the auction, either way you slice it, it certainly costs more than it did probably 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think the farmer is an ever optimist, right? We have to be. We don't, if you're pessimistic about it, you might as well not even start, because Lord knows we don't control the weather, we don't control the commodity prices, we don't control whether or not our herd remains healthy within our control, or if something happens, or government forces at play, or any of that. So I think we really at this point are just kind of looking to find some sort of reasonable beginning, and to try to flourish and expand from within ourselves through breeding and other acquisitions that we really can do in order to leave something that our children have been involved in starting and may want to continue in the future.
I am thrilled to hear that you're looking into this and you want to do it and you're going to make it go, because my other podcast called Grit and Grace in the Heartland, Women in Agriculture, my co-host is a cattle rancher in Nebraska, and she and her family are going to have to sit down next week and figure out what animals they are keeping, what animals they are selling, because Nebraska and South Dakota, basically the whole Midwest, other than Minnesota and Wisconsin, and we're upper Midwest, so it's different, is in the middle of a drought. And and there's been a lot of fires in Nebraska this spring. And so the grazing land is burned. And a lot of people are going to be selling off their cattle this year. And she told me that a bunch of people in her area are having issues with this spring's calves being sick because of the weather conditions. So if you think beef is expensive right now, it's only going to get more expensive. And I'm so sad about this.
I am as well, and us smaller scale farmers, of course, small scale, I think, as far as upper Midwest versus small scale,
Yes.
kind of towards Nebraska, and that are two different things, right? It's not necessarily the number of head we're talking about, it's kind of the operation in general.
Yeah.
But small scale farmers are really, kind of disappearing a bit, and being absorbed into larger operations. And I would really love to see family farmers and ranchers be able to continue to push forward somehow. For us, that means starting and scaling in increments that are manageable and small, not taking on operating loans or expenses, just trying to kind of chip it out as we can, and try to teach our children to do the same and do the best with the circumstances we can control. And if we can at least start with feeding ourselves, feeding my family, feeding our, the few families that are connected directly to us, be good stewards of the animals and the land, and just keep going away at it. It is our way of life, and what we would welcome and want people to try to continue to do. On the other hand, I realize it's difficult. Conditions can be brutal, emotionally, physically, environmentally. And I tip my hat to any fellow farmer or rancher that is having to make these tough decisions, because it's not fun. But I send our prayers and well wishes with them.
Yes. And no one gets into raising livestock because it's all rainbows and sunshine and boxes of candy. No one does.
Or for the money.
Yep.
I think that was especially in the rabbit world. We had expanded at one time to having our Red Ridge stock in 22 different states, kind of going through starting other people's barns for themselves, starting to show territory. And there's an assumption that, well, you're just in it for the money. You're, exploiting these poor small woodland creatures. But I can promise the profit in farming is purely one of culture, lifestyle, and it's really in the heart. It certainly has nothing to do with monetary gain or loss, as it were, depending on the year.
No, it's because you freaking love it.
Yes.
Yes. And I really want to pound on that, because I feel like a lot of people just make assumptions about people who grow things or raise animals. And I don't know why it's weird to be in agriculture, but a lot of Americans think that it's weird to be in agriculture. And I'm like, it's not weird. Why is it any weirder than being in selling boats for a living or selling cars or selling crypto? Do what you love.
Yep. I do think some of it, as far as the wider American public, links back to our separation from our food and our specific food chain. We did see a swing back a little bit as far as American families keeping chickens, for example, after COVID or with the rise in egg prices. Um, but otherwise, I think people just see food and agriculture as something that's like, well, somebody else is going to do it. What do you want to do it for? Somebody else will do it. But for those of us that are in agriculture, it's really a cornerstone of our lives. And it's interesting because I don't come from really an agriculture background. I was not raised in the Midwest. My husband 100% was. This is his heritage. It's something I always felt drawn to, even as a little girl. So the agriculture bug bit me somehow.
Yes.
And I think it can really be something that anyone who feels the call can do. It might not be easy, it might not always be fun or Instagram worthy, but anybody can do it if they're willing to really make some sacrifices and get into the community to learn from others as well.
Yep. So are your kids into this?
My kids are very into this. Yes. I have one daughter and one son. They are going into middle and high school. They are involved in the FFA. They very much are out there on the tractor and, working to acquire their own beef herd, as it were. They have steak and the rabbits. So they're very much farm kids.
That gives me so much hope.
Yeah, me too.
We need, I'm going to use the term little people, but we need our little people and our getting bigger people to embrace this, because somebody's gotta grow the food that America eats, you know?
Right. It's really that connection with our food, with agriculture, and with, the real world that is, required to operate within it to make sure it continues. So we
Yep.
do our best to give them that.
I'm so glad. And I'm so glad that your daughter is into it, because again, a lot of people assume that girls don't farm, and women are very into farming now. Very.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, and she, has a favorite brand of tractor. We will not argue about colors of green on this podcast, but I promise my son and daughter have differing opinions on it, and they're very strong ones. They have their favorites for the field and what each of their own individual plans are, but raising a daughter that is interested in crops and in livestock, and additionally in animal sciences, really makes me proud to show other mothers and other daughters that, we have a place here.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't care what color the tractor is, as long as it gets the job done.
I feel that way. I'm not, I don't understand what the whole spiel is, but I am happy to let, as long as they're going to drive it to do the chores, right? That's my, that's my thing.
Yeah, and as long as it starts and continues running, we're good.
And as long as they can fix it. We happen to run,
Our truck,
kind of older
that
equipment
that too,
that they
yes.
can fix. Yeah. So,
Yes. And the other thing that I kind of want to touch on, because we're talking about tractors, which I never talk about because I don't really use ours, my husband does. Um, uh, Tractors don't have to be brand new, like came off the line yesterday, to work.
absolutely.
You can pick up an old tractor and rehab it, whatever, and it'll work just as good as a brand new tractor. You just won't have screens and computers that tell you where you are in the field.
Right. Yes, that's how we personally operate. I understand why other operations may operate differently, but for us, particularly since we only really started within the last decade, it's important to us to operate something we can afford at the jump. We can work on ourselves. We may be able to still find spare parts for, versus waiting on a computer chip from somewhere that we don't know how long it's going to take to get here or if it will. The plants have got to get planted.
Yes,
So,
I am old enough to remember when cars did not have a computer system in them,
right.
and
Yeah.
I kinda hate that cars have computer systems in them now.
Yeah. It's one more thing to fix, right?
One more very expensive thing to fix, yes.
Yeah. Yep. So, our kids are, and I don't drive the tractors as often. It's kind of my husband's thing. I am the one that is the gopher and the do and he needs me to go down to the implement store and bring him what have you.
Mhm.
Because again, this was what he was raised on. He's worked on these types of tractors his whole life. I can contribute in other areas, but for the most part, it's been a positive way for us to kind of maintain things in our operation.
Yes, so you're in southwestern Wisconsin?
Yes, we're just about halfway between Madison, Wisconsin, and Dubuque, Iowa, in the southwestern corner of Wisconsin.
Okay, so, you've been to Minnesota, yes, no?
Yes, I have.
You know how Minnesota is weird because, like, the southern part of the state is pretty flat, but as you go further north, it's more hilly and forested?
Yes, we are the opposite.
So it's not flat where you are?
No, it is not flat where we are. It's pretty, you know, graded and hilly, and it is not flat where we are. We're considered what's called the driftless region.
Oh, yes, okay.
Um, so we are not necessarily in a really flat part of the state.
No, but you are in a really beautiful part of the state. I have been to the Driftless area, it's gorgeous.
Yes, it's very unique, and it certainly has different landscapes for everyone.
Your cattle are gonna love it.
Yes, they will, as long as the fences hold, right? And don't go through we have creeks that run through some of our property, and they can be a little crafty about getting around the fences that go through the creek, but it's a beautiful landscape and a beautiful area.
I am so excited for you. What's the ETA or the possibility ETA on getting cattle?
Um, we don't really have a firm timeline. We're kind of shooting for before summer,
Nice.
but I think that has a lot to do with how the planting season starts and a lot of other things that are kind of intertwined with making sure we are set up with good fences and water and all that for the cattle. So hopefully before fall.
I am gonna have to keep an eye on your Facebook page for when the first pictures show up of your cattle on your property.
I'm sure there will be lots of them. So yes, please do.
I love when I get to interview people and they have new things coming down the road because it'll pop up on my Facebook feed and I'm like, "Oh yeah, they finally got the thing," whatever it is.
Yep. The pivot away from rabbits has been um well, I shouldn't say away from rabbits, but away from rabbits being the main focal point has been a little bittersweet.
Yeah.
You know, Rabbits built Rud Ridge. It did. The purpose of beginning where we did with rabbits was because we lived in town. You can't have cows in town. My husband was still active duty military at the time, and so it's how my children and I really started Rud Ridge as kind of a segue into my husband's retirement.
Mhm.
To now move forward into cows is seeing everything we dreamed of for 20 years kind of come to fruition. So I feel like I'm departing from what built Red Ridge and moving into, the future that I'm excited for, but it's also a little bittersweet. So I try to invite people to do their own part for their family with their food source still through rabbits, to kind of maintain that connection.
Yeah. It's so exciting, Ruth. I'm so thrilled for you. All right,
Thank you.
where can people find you? I try to keep these to half an hour and we're at 28 minutes.
Oh, okay. That went by fast, huh?
Yeah.
So people can find us at Red Ridge LLC on Facebook. That is most commonly where I am able to update. We do have a regular website, redridgewisconsin.com, but that can be a little more clunky to update. So I'm trying to get there to get it a little more current, but we look forward to having people join us where they can find us.
Awesome. As always, people can find me at atinyhomesteadpodcast.com. Ruth, I love what you're doing, and I appreciate the fact that you took time out of your busy day to chat with me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
All right, have a good day.
You too.